Mötley Crüe has had a great run. I'm touring until I cannot move anymore. And then, after that, when they bury me, I'm still going to have a Mötley Crüe record.
Drunk at the age of 73, Mick Mars shocked the public by going public with serious accusations against Mötley Crüe, from being cut out of his profit share to a series of internal moves aimed at stripping him of control over the brand. Those statements were only the beginning of a far more complex sequence of events. What is really going on? Let's take a closer look at the story between Mick Mars and Mötley Crüe. Born in 1951 in Terre Haute, Indiana, Mick Mars, whose birth name is Robert Allen Deal, grew up in a financially struggling household and pursued music from his teenage years. Before becoming an icon of glam metal, Mars spent nearly 2 decades playing in obscure California bands, repeatedly failing and changing groups. Those years of rejection shaped the gritty style and resilience that later became his signature when he co-founded Mötley Crüe in 1981. From the very beginning, Mick Mars played an irreplaceable role in shaping the musical identity of Mötley Crüe. While the other members stood out for their wild images and loud lifestyles, Mars stayed focused on sound and guitar technique. He was the one who proposed the name Mötley Crüe after hearing a bandmate describe them as a motley-looking crew. That suggestion not only laid the foundation for the band's branding but also reflected his own personality. The most distinct difference between Mick Mars and the rest of Mötley Crüe lies in his work ethic. While the group followed prevailing metal trends, Mars remained loyal to traditional blues rock, creating heavy, deep riffs that defined hits like "Kickstart My Heart, Girls, Girls, Girls" and "Dr. Feel Good." Those who worked with him in the studio confirmed that Mars was often the first to arrive and the last to leave, always carrying a notebook with technical notes on each solo. Mick Mars' dedication stands out even more in light of the bone disease he suffers from. At the age of 17, Mars was diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis, a chronic inflammatory condition that causes the vertebrae to gradually fuse. It is a rare disease, causing constant pain and severely limiting mobility. According to medical records disclosed by Mars during a lawsuit in 2023, he underwent spinal fusion surgery in 2004, had metal rods implanted to maintain posture, and endured daily pain just to perform. Though faced with health challenges, Mars never allowed the illness to dictate his career. For more than 40 years, he participated in every studio album, tour, and major event. Industry professionals have repeatedly pointed out that most of the guitar tracks recorded in the studio were performed entirely by Mars himself, without substitutes or supplemental techniques. Sound engineers at Elektra Records, the label behind many of the band's albums, noted that Mars was the only member who consistently carried his guitar everywhere, even during press conferences and backstage. Unlike his bandmates, Mars was rarely involved in scandals involving substance abuse, violence, or lawsuits during Mötley Crüe's peak years. His quiet, somewhat isolated personality kept him away from media attention, but he served as a steady musical anchor for the band. Hard rock and metal forums like Blabbermouth and Metal Sludge have conducted multiple surveys showing that Mars is the most respected member of the group, particularly for his consistency and refusal to be swept up in commercial trends. His achievements alone are enough to cement his legacy in rock history. Over 100 million records sold with Mötley Crüe, dozens of world tours, and recognition from institutions like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Even though the band has not been officially inducted, behind all the glory lies a long stretch of quietly enduring physical pain and emotional solitude, a truth the public has only recently begun to understand. The departure that was rewritten, on October 26, 2022, Mick Mars officially announced his withdrawal from Mötley Crüe's touring activities, citing health reasons that no longer allowed him to keep up with the band's demanding stage schedule. His statement carried a clear emphasis. He affirmed that he remained an official member of the band, merely stepping back from live performances without relinquishing his membership or share in the group. This information was quickly picked up by major outlets such as Variety, Billboard, and Rolling Stone, drawing significant attention from the fan community. Shortly after, Mötley Crüe released a separate press statement confirming that a guitarist would replace Mick Mars for the remainder of the stadium tour alongside Def Leppard. John 5, known for his work with Marilyn Manson and Rob Zombie, was announced as the successor. The contents of the press release raised questions among observers. There was no detail clarifying that Mars retained his role as a band member, nor any mention of mechanisms for sharing royalties or profits after stepping down from touring. The way the band's communication described Mars as someone who had fulfilled his mission further fueled doubts about transparency. What shifted the situation was how the band handled media in the following weeks. Promotional materials for the tour entirely removed Mick Mars' image. News of John 5's replacement sparked controversy within the fan base. Before joining Mötley Crüe, John 5 had been close to several band members, especially Nicky Six. Some music trade publications like Ultimate Classic Rock suggested that Mars' replacement had been orchestrated. Although no conflict was made public, Mick Mars was said to be taken aback by how quickly events unfolded and felt he was pushed out without consultation. It should be noted that within Mötley Crüe, Mick Mars always held an independent role, refraining from involvement in personal affairs or non-musical ventures. This helped him maintain a clean image, but also meant his voice carried less weight during band governance. According to behind-the-scenes sources, Mars was often absent from financial meetings, leading to his voting rights being diminished. Even though he still held a significant share in the Mötley Crüe brand, in the months following his touring withdrawal, Mick Mars did not respond publicly. He remained silent on social media, declined interview requests, and avoided any events related to Mötley Crüe. Still, by late January 2023, the press discovered he had quietly met with legal counsel in Los Angeles, preparing legal documents concerning his internal rights within the group. This was later confirmed by Deadline, indicating that Mars did not accept being removed unilaterally, and was preparing a structured response. Another noteworthy development was how the remaining band members handled the media. Nicky Six repeatedly posted vague statements on Twitter about the need for team spirit and the new high-energy lineup, without mentioning Mick Mars. Tommy Lee shared rehearsal photos with John 5, while Vince Neil remained completely silent. These actions were viewed by part of the fan base as disrespectful to someone who had been with the group for over 4 decades. As the situation escalated, veteran artists like Dee Snider, Twisted Sister, and Tracy I. Guns, L.A. Guns, voiced support for Mick Mars, calling Mötley Crüe's treatment of a founding member a blatant betrayal. Major forums within the metal community like Reddit, Metalcore, and Blabbermouth opened threads analyzing the legal implications, clearly revealing that the internal rift within the band could no longer be hidden. The withdrawal from touring had become the starting point of a far more complex series of events set to unfold, exposing the lawsuit file. On April 6, 2023, Mick Mars officially filed a lawsuit against Mötley Crüe in the Los Angeles County Superior Court, marking the start of an unprecedented public legal battle in the bands. According to details reported by Variety, Mars accused the remaining members of illegally and immorally conspiring to oust him and of unilaterally cutting his profit share in an attempt to remove him from the decision-making structure. At the heart of the lawsuit was a dispute over ownership shares. Mars claimed he still held a 25% stake in the group, and the reduction of that stake to 5% was made without any legitimate internal agreement. His lawyer stated that the other members, through their private attorneys and the band CFO, had altered the distribution terms on their own even though Mars never signed any resignation or rights transfer document. Notably, the lawsuit revealed behind-the-scenes details never made public before. In a passage quoted by Rolling Stone, Mick Mars stated he had been forced to prove his ability to perform through personal tests. He described this as a form of humiliation and degradation, especially given his status as an original member. According to Mars, none of the other 3 members had ever been subjected to similar requirements. The lawsuit also contained shocking allegations about the band's live performances. Mick Mars accused Mötley Crüe of using technical methods such as playback and digital aids to maintain their stage image. Specifically, he claimed Vince Neil often lip-synced during recent tours, while Tommy Lee used pre-programmed drum loops. Mars insisted he was the only one performing fully live, and this became the reason he was viewed as out of sync with the band. Immediately after the documents were made public, Mötley Crüe issued an official response denying all allegations. A statement from the band's attorney emphasized that Mick Mars had experienced a significant decline in performance ability, was unable to remember songs, and could no longer keep up with the band's pace. Nikki Sixx also posted a series of tweets describing how rehearsals had been disrupted by Mars, asserting that the decision to replace him was necessary to maintain performance quality. Still, fan reactions did not completely side with the band. On music forums and social media, many argued that Mars was being made a scapegoat in a group increasingly driven by commercial interests. Some industry figures, including veteran journalist Eddie Trunk, suggested that Mars possessed the most distinctive playing style and that continuing the band without him would weaken its core musical value. Loudwire published an article noting that Mars' claims aligned with a broader pattern of internal restructuring used by many major bands to maximize financial gain. Beyond financial and performance-related disputes, a key part of the lawsuit addressed brand ownership. Mars claimed he remained a co-owner of the Mötley Crüe name and had voting rights on major decisions. The band's continued use of the name without his approval was seen as a violation of long-standing partnership principles. Mars' legal team stated they were considering a motion to bar the band from using the name unless a clear agreement was reached. The legal battle also began affecting the band's credibility with business partners. According to industry sources, several brands that had sponsored past tours reached out for clarification. International event organizers like Live Nation were said to be closely monitoring the lawsuit's developments, as it could affect future tour contracts. As of mid-2024, the case had yet to reach a final ruling, but it already caused lasting fallout. Regardless of the outcome, the lawsuit's revelations have tarnished Mötley Crüe's public image. For Mick Mars, this is not just a legal battle. It is a fight to defend his honor and personal legacy after more than 4 decades of contribution to American hard rock. While the band moves forward with its new lineup and avoids addressing the controversy, Mick Mars has taken a different path. He has chosen not to retaliate in words, but instead launched an independent music project for the first time under his own name, marking a completely new chapter. The journey continues. In February 2024, while the legal dispute with Mötley Crüe was still ongoing, Mick Mars released his debut solo album titled The Other Side of Mars. This marked the first time in his career that he launched a musical project entirely independent of the band's name. Featuring 10 tracks, the album blends hard rock with elements of grunge, industrial and alternative metal, a clear departure from what the public had previously heard from Mötley Crüe. Work on The Other Side of Mars began in mid-2022 when Mick Mars decided to dedicate himself fully to studio time in Nashville. He collaborated with Michael Wagner, a producer known for his work with Metallica, Ozzy Osbourne, and Skid Row, to ensure top-tier sound quality and recording techniques. The entire process was kept under wraps until late 2023, when Mars began sharing behind-the-scenes images on social media. The team behind the album included seasoned musicians, Paul Taylor, keyboardist known for Winger and Alice Cooper, Jacob Bunton, lead vocals, Cornbread bass, and Ray Luzier, drums from Korn. The presence of these established names signaled that this was not a personal experiment, but a strategic release aimed at redefining Mick Mars' musical identity post-Mötley Crüe. The opening track, Loyal to the Lie, immediately caught attention with heavy riffs, pounding rhythms, and an intensely angry tone. The song was viewed by critics as a direct response from Mars to the accusations made by his former band. In an interview with Guitar World, he stated, "I don't need to write a statement. I just let the guitar do the talking." Most of the other tracks, including Killing Breed, Right Side of Wrong, and Ready to Roll, revolve around themes of betrayal, defiance, and self-assertion. Musically, The Other Side of Mars received favorable reviews from critics. Kerrang! Magazine called it the most personal and honest album Mars has ever made. Loudwire remarked that his guitar style remains distinct but now placed in a modern and more aggressive sonic environment. YouTube channels specializing in music analysis, such as Anderton's Music Company and Rick Beato, broke down his solos in detail, showing that Mick Mars' technical skills remained elite even at the age of 73. Fan response was overwhelmingly positive. The album quickly reached number 5 on the iTunes Rock chart and number 18 on the Billboard Top Rock Albums in its first week. Notably, the majority of purchases were physical copies, a sign that Mars' loyal fan base remains eager to support him directly. On forums like Reddit and Facebook groups dedicated to classic rock, many comments declared The Other Side of Mars one of the best rock albums of the year. Strategically, Mick Mars stated that he would not tour in support of the album, citing health issues that prevent him from performing for extended periods. Still, he announced plans to release several remixed versions and produce a behind-the-scenes video documenting the recording process. In an interview with Metal Edge, he affirmed, "I don't need the stage. I need the studio. That's where I truly live." Notably, Mars confirmed that he is already working on a second album, expected to be released by the end of 2025. The next project is described as more electronic in tone, experimenting with ambient and industrial rock. He revealed that he is collaborating with an emerging female artist in the alternative scene, though her name has yet to be disclosed. Mars' goal is to continue challenging himself and remain completely independent of any past legacy. In addition, The Other Side of Mars serves as a personal artistic manifesto. It is not just a music album but clear evidence that Mick Mars does not need the fame of Mötley Crüe to maintain his influence. While most artists of his generation opt for retirement or reunion tours, Mars chose to step out of the band's shadow and assert his independent identity. With the unexpected success of his debut solo album, Mick Mars has reaffirmed his status as a veteran artist. After the release of The Other Side of Mars, he began reappearing in public through a series of press interviews in 2024 and early 2025. From a once reserved musician, he has gradually become a voice sharing insights into long-concealed internal events. The Truth revealed at 73, in the June 2024 cover story of Rolling Stone, Mars confirmed his feeling of betrayal by the very co-founders of Mötley Crüe. "I was drained like a broken machine and then thrown away. That's not how brothers treat each other." In a series of interviews with trade magazines like Guitar World, Classic Rock Magazine, and Music Radar, Mick Mars expressed his personal disappointment when reflecting on the final chapter of his time with the band. What stood out, though, was his absence of bitterness or personal attacks. When asked about a potential reunion with Mötley Crüe, Mars did not rule it out but emphasized that the terms wouldn't be about money or branding compromises. He stated, "If one day we play together again, it has to be for the music, not for a contract or a festival lineup." That remark was immediately quoted widely across media channels, especially given that Mötley Crüe continues to perform with a new lineup without the man who helped shape the band's signature sound. Throughout his reflections, Mars focused on the personal lessons learned from the fallout. He revealed that he now spends most of his time at home in Nashville doing physical therapy to maintain mobility and working in the studio. Although he no longer performs live, he continues to practice guitar daily and compose new music as a form of mental therapy. The current image of Mick Mars is that of an independent artist rarely seen in public but deeply respected within the music community. At major rock festivals like Hellfest, France, and Aftershock, USA, many younger bands have openly credited him as an influence in guitar style and production philosophy. On platforms like YouTube and podcasts, channels dedicated to classic rock regularly feature segments on Mars, analyzing each album, each solo, and how he has preserved his artistic identity over decades. For Mick Mars' upcoming 75th birthday celebration expected in 2026, several veteran music journalists have proposed nominating him for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, not just as a Mötley Crüe member, but as a solo artist. According to an analysis by Music Business Worldwide, Mars' influence has grown noticeably since the lawsuit, reflecting a public shift toward valuing transparency, integrity, and long-term artistic dedication over superficial glamour. Mars himself rarely talks about awards or accolades. In a conversation with Metal Hammer at the end of 2024, when asked how it felt to have laid the truth bare, he responded simply, "I didn't speak to win. I spoke to stay true to myself." As of now, Mars remains silent on whether he plans to re-engage in any form of collaboration with Mötley Crüe. Legal teams on both sides are still negotiating, though no terms have been disclosed. Meanwhile, he remains firmly committed to his independent creative path, stating he will only release new information when I'm ready mentally and artistically. Though no longer standing on brightly lit stages with the band, Mick Mars still holds his place as an irreplaceable figure in American classic rock. And at 73, he hasn't chosen to fade away. He's rewriting his final chapter through the sound of his guitar and the clarity of his words. What do you think about Mick Mars' revelations? Leave a comment below and let us know your thoughts after this video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest content.